Hey there, everybody. I am coming to you today to work on your math assignment from encumbrances or liens, specifically talking about property taxes and how to calculate property taxes. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'm going to walk you through the math worksheet assignment that you have step by step, and hopefully explain in detail each question so that if you're struggling at all with these, you can watch this over and over, and it'll help you develop a comfort level with calculating property taxes and how those questions might be presented to you on the exam. So one of the first things I'm going to share with you on my screen now, um, which is where you need to start. It's always going to be in your online learning platform. And once you get logged in over there, just remember that it's laid out chapter by chapter. And so you're going to scroll down until you get to chapter 3, and that's where you're going to find this homework worksheet that we're going to work on today. And it's called the Property Tax Math Worksheet in there. You're just going to go in there, click on it, and then you hit the download button. And once you hit the download button, it'll bring up the worksheet for you. So make sure that you're good with how to find the homework so that you can get to it, because it is important to find it and get it done so that you can be okay with this. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the worksheet itself. And whenever I am doing math, I always like to remind myself what formula I have to be working with. Now, when you're on the exam, you're going to have to decide from a bunch of formulas. As we do these throughout the class, you're pretty much going to be working with one or maybe two formulas at a time. But I can't stress enough for you how much you need to go back and memorize these formulas. Remember, everything's going to be given to you as a T-bar for the class. Your formulas are always going to be given as a T-bar. And we talked about how the T-bar works. We talked about the fact that when you're looking at a T-bar, if the two things are side by side in the T-bar, you're going to multiply them. And if they're top and bottom in the T-bar, you're going to divide the top divided by the bottom. And so we're going to constantly go back and work with it. Now, this formula that you see on the screen with you right now is the formula for calculating a property tax bill. Now, this formula gives you the way to come up with the annual or yearly property tax bill. Remember, property taxes in North Carolina cover January 1 through December 30th. And we say December 30th, remember, because it's a 360-day year. We're going to count every month as if it has 30 days instead of worrying about January having 31 and February having 28 and March having 31 and so on and so forth. We're going to treat every month the same as if they all have 30 days. 12 months of 30 days is 360 days. But this formula calculates the annual tax bill. And it requires you to have two pieces of information. You need the assessed tax value of the property, not a sales price, not a market value, not what the owner thinks it's worth, not what it's listed for in the MLS. They may give you a bunch of other numbers, which honestly are garbage in the question. We need the assessed tax value, and we also need the tax rate. And specifically for you all who are in my classes in North Carolina, we're talking about the North Carolina tax rate, which is a percentage-based rate. And so this is the formula that you're going to use to calculate. And the way I would read this formula is to say the property tax bill is equal to the assessed value times the tax rate. Again, I'm going to repeat that. The property tax bill is equal to the assessed value times the tax rate. So now let's take a look at your actual worksheet, and we're going to implement that same formula. And so here's the first clue. Look at a math question. Calculate the annual property tax due. Well, again, that's going to tell you what formula you want to be utilizing here. And the formula you want to be utilizing is this one. This is the only formula we have of the formulas that we give you throughout the class that has property tax bill as part of the formula. So you have to have the formula memorized well enough to know, okay, property tax bill, there's only one formula that is in there. And this is that formula. It has the property tax bill on the top, and it has the assessed value and the tax rate on the bottom. So on the exam, you have to be able to just fire that formula out. That is step one. Do not attempt to do these math problems until you have memorized the math formula that goes with those math problems, because understanding the math is useless if you don't know how to get there, and the formula is your roadmap. So make sure you're good with the formula. So I see that I need to calculate a property tax. That means I'm going to write down my formula as a reminder to myself, and the tax bill is going to be equal to the assessed value times the tax rate. So now I'm going to look at that same formula for each one of these examples. They want me to calculate the annual property tax due for the following properties, all located in Wake County. And they tell me something really important here. They tell me that we have a property tax rate of $1.01, 1.01 per $100 of value. Here's the great news for us. $1.01 per 100 is the same thing as 1.01%. Now I want you to look at that. I didn't change the number. I didn't move the decimal. I didn't do anything except get rid of the dollar sign and put a percent sign. So for each one of these questions, our rate right here in the formula is going to be 1.01%. So I can go ahead when I'm calculating these, and I can get myself set up here and say, okay, the rate is going to be 1.01%, because they told me that each one of these properties is located in Wake County with a property tax rate of $1.01 per 100. And they want to know the tax bill. Here's what they want to know, the thing that's on top. That's their question mark for me. They want to know the tax bill. So the formula says the other thing that I need to know is the assessed value. If you look over there at the formula, the other thing I need to know is the assessed value. Well, look at these questions. They're giving me the assessed value. So all I'm really going to need to do is take that assessed value of 250 right there, and I need to bring that down here into my formula. So $250,000 goes right there in my formula. And remember, with the T-bar, and I'm going to mark this up on the formula over here, when things are side by side, that means you multiply them. So literally what I'm going to type into my calculator, I've got my calculator here handy with me. I'm going to type 250,000 times 1.01%. Now on a calculator, don't hit the equals button. Don't hit anything after you hit the percent button on most calculators. And if I do that, it will come up with me a tax bill for that property of $2,525. That is the tax bill, which would be right there for the property. So we're just going to repeat that process on these additional ones here. It's the same thing. Each one of these is going to be the same thing. We're looking for the tax bill, which is on the top. That's what we don't know. We know the tax rate is 1.01%. And in this one, they tell us the assessed value is $118,500. So I'm going to type into my calculator $118,500 times 1.01%. Now again, on a calculator, don't hit equals. Once you hit the percent button, you should get the answer right away. If you're using your phone, you might have to hit equals, but don't use your phone. I get that your phone is handy. I love mine, but they're not going to let you use it on the exam. You need to get used to using a calculator if you're using a phone. Fix it. Get a calculator. They're not expensive. You're doing yourself a disservice. I'm just saying, stop, stop, stop using your phone. I know it's easy, but they're not going to let you use it on the test. Get rid of it. Get a calculator. All right. And so if we type in 118,500 times 1.01%, we come up with a tax bill on the second one of $1,196.85. And again, that's for the whole year. That's for January 1 through December 30th. That's the annual property tax bill. And just again, repeating the exact same process. Here we go. They want to know the property tax bill here. So at the end, they're asking me for the same thing, the thing that's on top of the formula. And they tell me we have an assessed value of $325,000. And on all these, we're using the same tax rate of 1.01%, because remember, it told us they were all located in Wake County with a tax rate of $1.01 per 100. So my math just becomes 325,000 times 1.01%. And that gives me an annual tax bill of $3,282.50 for that property. Now, when you look at D becomes slightly more complex. And the reason D becomes slightly more complex is they've given you more information. But I'm going to write the formula down again for you and show you that the formula never changes. They want to know the property tax bill, which is on the top. And we know that that is equal to the assessed value times the tax rate. So look at the information they give us here. They give us a market value, and then they also give us an assessed value. They just gave you more than you need. Don't scramble around trying to figure out, I got to use that 292. No, you don't. You use what the formula says you need to use. And the formula says to use the assessed value. So what am I going to do with the market value? Get rid of it. I realize that's evil, but that's how they're going to do it on the test. They're going to give you more information than you need, because in real life, you always have more information than you need. The real math here is getting down to what you need and being comfortable and confident that I need to know the assessed value and I need to know the tax rate. So once we've kind of gotten that straight for ourselves, we're doing the exact same thing. They want to know what's on top. They want to know the tax bill. And we know down here on the bottom, we're going to put our assessed value of $282,000. And we're going to put our tax rate of 1.01%. And I'm going to type those things into my calculator. 282,000 times 1.01%. And that gives me an annual tax bill on this property of $2,848.20. 28.48 and 20 cents. Now, people ask me about rounding all the time. Don't worry about rounding. Don't stress about rounding. De-stress yourself. Take the stress out of your life as much as possible. Don't worry about rounding. My advice about that is go up to 4 numbers past the decimal, 4 places past the decimal. Whatever your calculator spits out at you, take at least 4 numbers past the decimal if it gives you. If it only gives you 2, then that's what you write down. If it gives you 3, that's what you write down. If it gives you 12, only write down 4 of them. And then you don't need to worry about rounding. People say, do I round up? Do I round down? If you take 4 past the decimal, don't round at all. Don't worry about rounding. It'll de-stress your life, make you feel a lot better. It really will. Market value of $496.5 and assessed value of $515 on the next one. So again, they want to know the tax bill. So I'm going to write down my T-bar, and they want to know the thing on the top, which is the tax bill. And I know I need the assessed value down there on the bottom. So I'm just going to get rid of this market value thing. It's useless for me. I'm going to get rid of it. And I'm going to take my assessed value of $515,000 and my tax rate of 1.01%. And I'm going to type that into my calculator, 515,000 times 1.01%. And then my annual tax bill turns out to be $5,201.50. Now remember, that's a bill that's going to come out usually in early September if you're in North Carolina for the property, and it's due as soon as it arrives, but it's not late. You have until January 5th of the following year to pay it. It would be late or delinquent on January 6th of the following year. So you're not going to get this bill until about September in most years, but you have until January 5th of the following year to actually get the bill paid and not risk losing your property to a tax foreclosure, which is sort of important. Now, if making it a little bit more complex, and you'll notice as you go through the class, this is how I handle math worksheets. I give you the most basic, and then we add a wrinkle, and then we add another wrinkle, until eventually we get to the point of a full-blown test question. We haven't gotten there yet, but you have to build it little by little, and that's okay. It's also okay if you're watching these videos and you're like, okay, I got what he's doing, I'm good with this. Fast forward through that section and get to where we add the next wrinkle. If you're not okay, go back and watch the more basic ones. Don't move forward until you're completely comfortable with what we've done. That's the beauty of having this on video. So again, on the next one, they're still asking us to calculate the property tax bill. The property tax bill is always up here on top of our formula. And down here on the bottom, we need the assessed value and we need the tax rate. Well, I'm going to go ahead and fill in my tax rate because I know that. But this assessed value down here, which I know I need, look at what they've given me. And some might say what they've not given me. It says the assessed value is 85% of the market value. Let me go ahead and highlight the rest of that. The assessed value is 85% of the market value. They didn't give me a number for the assessed value, but they did give me a way to get there. Here's the beauty of percentages when you put them into a sentence. That phrase, 85% of market value. Let me tell you how you're going to deal with that phrase. You're going to take whatever comes after the of. So in this case, you're going to take market value. So this is what you're focusing on. You always take whatever comes after the word of when you're dealing with percentages and just write that down again. So we're going to start with market value. And then you're going to turn the word of is going to become a multiplication symbol. And finally, you're going to take the very first thing they mentioned, and that's the 85%. That's what 85% of market value looks like when you type it in a calculator. So they told us the market value in this case is $127,000. And we're going to change that word of into a multiplication symbol. And then we're going to write down the 85% that they gave us. Now you can type that in your calculator. 85% of $127,000 is the same thing as 127,000 times 85%. So 127,000 times 85%, that's going to give me an assessed value of $107,950. Here's the great thing about that. I need assessed value over here in my formula. I now have assessed value over here. So now I can just take that number and plug it into my formula, 107,950. And again, we know those things are side by side in the T-bar. Whenever I've got the T-bar filled up with two of the three numbers, I can get the third number. I've got two of the three numbers in there. It's time to do some math. 107,950 times 1.01%. And that's going to give me a tax bill for this property of $1,090 and 0.295. And if you wanted to say 30 cents, that's fine. If you want to round it, I'm okay with that. But honestly, there's just no need. They're going to take care of the rounding for you on the answers on the test. So you're fine just saying it's 1,090.295. And don't worry about the rounding. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. So look at the next one. Kind of the same question. They want to know the tax bill. So I'm going to write down my T-bar because I got to have it ready to go and put my question mark with the thing they're asking me for. They're asking me for the tax bill, which is on the top. So that's where my question mark goes. And I know the things on the bottom are, just to remind myself, the assessed value and the rate. Well, we already know the rate. That's 1.01%. And here's what they told me about the assessed value. They say here the assessed value is 75% of the market value. So let's write that out the same way we learned before. So assessed value equals 75% of market value. And we know that we can substitute the market value in there. So 75% of 228,650. That's going to be my assessed value. And now we're ready to write that out in a way that we can type it in the calculator. Remember, you start with the number that's at the end first. So we're going to start with that number first. And we're going to say, okay, here we go. My assessed value is going to equal 228,650. And then of is going to become multiplication. And then we're going to finish it out by filling in the percentage that they gave me, 75%. And now we have something we can type in the calculator. 228,650 times 75%. And I come up with an assessed value that equals 171,487 and 50 cents. Here's the good news for us. There's an assessed value. I need an assessed value. I can just take that number and bring it over here now. My assessed value is 171,487.50. And I know that I now have two numbers filled in my T-bar, so I can do some math. They're side by side, okay? And I'm going to multiply 171,487 and 50 cents times 1.01%. And that's going to give me a tax bill on that property, an annual tax bill. Stay consistent with the colors here. An annual tax bill of $1,732.0237. Like I said, just go 4 past the decimal and don't worry about the rounding. 1732.0237. I realize my penmanship's pretty bad there. Let me clean that up so you can read it. Okay, so go back and look at those a couple times. Make sure you're comfortable with those. All right, and so I'm going to put a little bit of a pause here in the video because I think you need to take a pause and go back and make sure you're comfortable calculating a tax rate. Okay, now that you have had some practice with calculating a tax bill, let's continue on with the worksheet and look at the next thing it asks us to do. And in the next section, it asks you to calculate the assessed value of the property. here's the thing. If you see that on the test, you've got to immediately think, okay, what formula do I use? And it's always going to go back to, do you know those formulas? Do you have that formula memorized? This is the only formula we're going to use throughout the class that has assessed value in it. So that's the formula you have to use to get to an assessed value. You have to find a formula that uses assessed value. And so it's the same one we've been using all along. I'm going to write it down again just as a reminder. It's the tax bill on the top. Remember, that's the annual tax bill. And then down here on the bottom, you have the assessed value and the tax rate. Okay. In this case, though, the question mark, the thing they're asking us for is the assessed value. They're not asking us for the tax bill on the top anymore. They're asking us for the assessed value. Now, here's the thing. Don't scramble the T-bar around. Don't move things around. I think sometimes people have a tendency to think, oh, they want this, I got to put it on top. No, you put it where it goes. It goes on the bottom. That's where it stays. So to work these out, we're going to write out our T-bar over here, and we're going to look and see, do we have those two pieces of information? On the top goes the tax bill. Well, they tell us an annual property tax bill of $37.85. So we're going to put that on the top because that's where it says the tax bill goes. And then they also give us here in the question a total tax rate of $1.76 per 100. Well, we know from before that $1.76 per 100, that $1.76 per 100 equals the same thing as 1.76%. So we're going to fill that into our T-bar here, 1.76%. Two numbers in the T-bar, we're ready to do some math. And we know now that since these are top and bottom numbers, there's going to be a division sign there. We're looking for this one. This is the one we don't know. We're looking for the assessed value. And so how are we going to type that into our calculator? We're going to type it in there exactly as it looks. That's $3,785 divided by 1.76%. And that will give us an annual tax, an assessed value rather on that property of $215,056.8181. That's our assessed value, $215,056.8181. All right, let's look at the next one. Home with an annual property tax bill of $75.68. So the tax bill is always on the top. Go ahead and fill that in. And we know down here we're looking for the assessed value. So there's our question mark. And we know what goes over here is the tax rate. And they told us for all of these questions, we're using 1.76%. So we're going to fill in that 1.76% right here. And there's our two numbers in the T-bar, top and bottom. So top divided by bottom, 7,568 divided by 1.76%. That is an assessed value of this property of $430,000. Okay, look at C. Home with an annual property tax bill of $10,525.50. Again, the same formula here. We know we need the tax bill on the top. We know we have the assessed value here on the bottom. We know we have the rate here on the bottom. We know they're asking us to calculate the assessed value, so that's where our question mark is. So what do they tell us about the tax bill? They tell us it is $10,525.50. And we know the rate that we're using for all of these questions is 1.76%, top and bottom. So we're going to divide those. So we look at typing in the calculator, 10,525.50 0.50 divided by 1.76%. And that gives us an assessed value of $599.7727. Again, don't worry about the rounding. Just go 4 past the decimal, you'll be fine. If you want to say 77 cents, that's okay too. If you want to round it, if you feel better rounding it, great. It's not going to matter on the test. The answer choices won't be that close together, so you'll be fine. Okay? Look at this one. Same formula comes into play here. We know that the tax bill is going to be on the top. We know that on the bottom we have the assessed value and we have the rate. Just to be consistent, I'll draw that with the green. So let's start filling in the information. We know the tax bill is $9,500. We know we're looking for the assessed value. That's the thing we don't yet know. And we know the rate is 1.76%. So type it in just like it looks in the T-bar. 9,500 divided by 1.76%. And that equals an assessed value of $539,772.7272. And that's how you calculate an assessed value. Now, in the next section, they ask us about a total tax rate paid by homeowners. A total tax rate is just the grand total of what they're paying. Here's what we need to understand. If a property is located in a city, if you're located in a city, you're going to pay both the city rate and the county rate because every city is located within a county. But if some properties are not located in cities. Some properties are only found in the county, and those properties would only pay the county tax rate. So, but in these cases, it's really just as simple as basic addition. If a property is located in the town of Cary, it's going to pay 76 cents per 100 for the Wake County rate, plus it's going to pay an additional 26 cents per 100 for the town of Cary rate. And so if we add those together, 76 cents or 0.76 plus 26 cents, 0.26, that is $1.02 per $100 of valuation. And of course, we know if we were using that in a formula, we would just convert that to 1.02%. Either one is fine here. So that's $1.02 per 100 or 1.02%. So look at B. We've got a 65 cent rate for Chatham County and a 34-cent rate for Pittsburgh. I'm going to add those together, 0.65 plus 0.34. That is 99 cents for a total tax rate, which is the same as 0.99%. So whether you want to say 0.99% or 99 cents per 100, either way is fine. Okay. For C, we've got city and county of Durham. So we're going to add them together. We've got 98 cents for the county of Durham plus 28 cents for the city of Durham. That's $1.26 for a total rate, $1.26 per $100 of value, which of course we know is the same thing as 1.26%. Either one is fine for a question like that. And you won't see a question just like that, but you will see questions that incorporate that. That's part of them. So make sure you've got the basic building blocks. So now let's look at question 4. Question 4 is much more similar to what you could expect to see laid out for you on a test, in the sense that it is a long word problem. And one of the major challenges we face with the longer word problems is, first of all, what are they asking me for? I hear that so often from students. What are they asking me for? Well, I don't even know. Find the question. Don't try to read this question for detail. I think that's the mistake. We hear people say, you got to read the question carefully. Well, some questions, yes, but not math questions. You don't need to read math questions carefully, at least the first time you read through them. As a matter of fact, the first time you read through them, you're going to skip over pretty much everything in there because it's too much to try to absorb. Here's what you're looking for. What's the question? What are they asking me for? And so I'm just going to breeze through it. A new construction home is located in Roanoke Rapids and recently sold for $425,000. Okay, they're telling me it sold for $425,000. They're not asking me anything, so ignore it for now. Halifax County sets assessed market value at 95% of the original sales price for new homes. Again, they're telling me something. They're not asking me anything. What? Look at that word, what. It's a big word. What? Question. Questions coming. What are the annual ad valorem property taxes? So there's my question. What are the annual property taxes owed on the home located in if the Halifax County tax rate is 82 cents per 100 and the city of Roanoke Rapids charges 24 cents per 100? So first of all, now that you know the question, you can write down the formula. Once you know the question, first step, write down the formula. We only know one formula which has assessed value in it, or excuse me, which has property taxes in it. And because that's what they're asking us for, the property tax bill. And so we're going to write down that formula. We know the tax bill goes on the top, and we know on the bottom we've got the assessed tax value, and we have the tax rate. So now that we've got our formula written down, go ahead and put your question mark where it goes. They want to know the tax bill. They want to know the thing up here on top. This is what we're looking for, the tax bill. Well, let's find the other stuff. Let's see if we can find the other stuff. Let's hunt for the other stuff. Let's look and see if we have a tax rate. Well, here's what they tell us about the tax rate. I'm going to kind of underline it to help you see it here. It says the Halifax County tax rate is 82 cents per 100, and usually means plus. The city of Roanoke Rapids charges 24 cents per 100. Well, we already know the property is located in Roanoke Rapids. So that means it's going to pay the Roanoke Rapids city taxes. Well, you're always going to pay the county taxes. So that means our tax rate is going to have to be added together. So what we have here is a tax rate of 82 cents for the county plus a tax rate of 24 cents for the city. And so I'm going to add those together, 0.82 plus 0.24. That is $1.06, which is the same thing as 1.06%. Folks, I can fill that right in over here now, 1.06%. We are halfway to filling in our T-bar, halfway to being able to answer the question. So now what does the T-bar say we need? We know we're not going to find the tax bill. That's what they're asking us for. That's why I wrote the question mark there. But we need to find an assessed value. So let's look and see what it says about assessed value. It says a new construction home is located in Roanoke Rapids and recently sold for $425,000. Well, it's sold for $425,000. That's not an assessed value. It says Halifax County sets assessed market value. Oh, there we go. Assessed value at 95% of the sales price. 95% of the sales price. So let's write that out in words like we talked about before. The assessed value is equal to 95% of the sales price. And we know the sales price is $425,000. So my assessed value is 95% of $425,000. Okay, well, write that in a way I can type it in my calculator. My assessed value is going to equal $425,000 times 95%. Remember we talked about that earlier. So 425,000 times 95%. That means we have an assessed value of 403,750. And now we can fill that into our formula. 403,750. Well, bingo. I now have two of the three numbers in the T-bar. And once I have two of the three numbers in the T-bar, I'm done with hunting for numbers. Because if I have two of the three, I can come up with the third one. The two numbers that I do have are side by side, so I'm going to multiply them. Remember, anything side by side is multiplication. So 403,750, type it in just like it is in your T-bar now, times 1.06%. And that is an annual tax bill on that property of $4,279.75. $42.79 is my annual tax bill on that property. And that is very much like what you could expect to see as a potential test question on something like this, because it sort of ties all the ideas together. Do you understand what you're being asked? Do you understand what you need to get there? All right. Let's look at number 5. What's the assessed value of a property? Well, look at that. Here's the question right out of the gate. I'm going to stop reading. What's the assessed value of a property? Time to write the formula down. I found the question already. That's awesome. There's no need to read all that other data yet. I got to write a formula down. So let's write down the formula. Here's my formula. I know that the only formula that has assessed value in it is got tax bill on the top and then assessed value and rate on the bottom. Okay. So tax bill on the top. Well, look at that. They gave me a tax bill, $65.40. No work required. Just fill it in. It says the prompt, so let's see if we can find it. Remember, put a question mark for what we're being asked for. We're being asked for the assessed value. So now the other thing that we need to fill in is the rate. Here's what it tells me about the rate. For the rate, it says it's located in Rocky Mount, which has a city taxation rate of 35 cents per 100 and a county taxation rate of 75 cents per 100. So if it's in Rocky Mount, it's going to pay both the city and the county taxes. So let's look at that. Here are my city taxes of 35 cents per 100 plus my county taxes of 75 cents per 100. Check my math, but it looks like $1.10 to me. So 0.35 plus 0.75, it is. That is $1.10, which is the same thing as 1.10%. And now we can fill that rate in over here. $1.10, Trav. 1.10%. And we're going to type that into our calculator exactly like we have it in the T-bar. We're going to type in 65.40 divided by 1.10%. And that will give us an assessed value on this property of $594,545.4545. Again, I'm just going 4 past the decimal. If you rounded it to 45 cents, that's fine too. So look at where we've come. Now we have worked our way up to be able to answer 2 very specific questions that you might see on the test, which is how to calculate an annual tax bill given some information about the property, or how to calculate the assessed value, the assessed tax value of the property based on some information. Now, number 6 takes us off into a different land. It says convert the following mill rates. So I want to focus on this. When you see mill rate, the first thing that should pop to mind is I can't use the formula I've been using, because the formula I've been using doesn't say anything about a mill rate at all. The formula I've been using, it says North Carolina tax rate. Doesn't say anything about a mill rate. So you got to go back through your mental bank of your formulas that you've memorized, and hopefully you've also memorized this one. This is the formula for dealing with mill rates. And this formula says if you have a mill rate, you can divide it by 1,000 to convert it into a tax rate that you can actually work with. That's what this formula says. Mill rate's on the top. So whatever they give you as the mill rate's going to go on the top. The number 1,000 is always on the bottom. So that means you're always dividing by 1,000. So mill rate dividing by 1,000 equals a real tax rate. Well, now I can deal with the mill rate. So I'm going to go back over here to my sheet and I'm going to write that down. Write that formula down. Mill rate on the top. And then down here on the bottom, I have the number 1,000. And I have my decimal tax rate, or just tax rate. So in each one of these questions, they're giving me a mill rate. So that goes on the top. I know the number 1,000 always goes on the bottom. Well, if things are top and bottom on the T-bar, that just means divide. So 17 divided by 1,000, that is a mill or a decimal tax rate of 0.017. So we're just going to repeat that process for the other ones here. The mill rate's going to go on the top every time, 24 mills. And then down here on the bottom, you've got the number 1,000. And if we divide 24 divided by 1,000, we're going to come up with 0.024. Same thing in the next one, a mill rate of 15 mills. We've got the number 1,000 down here on the bottom. 15 divided by 1,000 gives us a tax rate of 0.017. Here's why that's important. This tax rate right here, that tax rate can be used now in our other formula if we want to calculate the tax bill on a property, which is really useful, especially if they ask us a question like number 7. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I thought it might give us a mill rate question, but it didn't. So let's look at number 7 then. A property is located in Nash County and subject to an ad valorem tax rate of $1.12 per 100. I'm just reading it quickly. Again, I'm looking for a question. I don't know what they want to know yet. So I don't care about where it's located. I don't care about what the tax rate is. Ask me something, and then I'll tell you what I care about. The property's assessed tax value is $172,500. Again, I don't care. I might care later, but I don't care yet because you haven't asked me a question. Based on this information and using a 360-day year, what are the daily property taxes owed on the home? There's my question. What are the daily property taxes owed on the home? So here's the thing. I don't have any formula at all that will calculate daily property taxes for me. But I do have a formula that will give me annual property taxes or yearly property taxes. And folks, once I know yearly, I can change that to monthly. I can change it to weekly. I can change it to daily because I'm pretty smart and I know there are 12 months in a year and I know how many weeks there are in a year. It's 52. I know how many days there are in a year. That's a little bit of a gotcha in this class, though. There's 360 days in a year. But I know if I have an annual tax bill, I can break it down into smaller pieces. And so don't try to get directly to a daily property tax. You can't get there. But what you can do is get to an annual. We know a formula, which we've used a lot on this worksheet, which has the annual tax bill on the top. And then down here on the bottom, it has the assessed tax value and the tax rate. Well, let's calculate the annual tax bill. Let's get the annual and then we'll worry about the daily part. So here's my question mark. I want to know the annual tax bill. They tell me some information about the property. They tell me, first thing, property is located in Nash County and subject to an ad valorem tax rate of $1.12 per 100. So there's my rate right there. I can just fill that in, 1.12%. Okay, I got a rate. Halfway home. The property's assessed tax value is $172.5. Well, look at that. They gave me the assessed value as well. $172.5. Two things in a T-bar. Done hunting. No more searching for numbers. They're side by side. I'm going to multiply them. So I'm going to take that 172,500 times 1.12%. That gives me an annual tax bill. So yearly tax bill equals $1,932. But they didn't ask me for the yearly tax bill. I'm going to remind you of that question that I highlighted in blue. What are the daily property taxes owed on the home? Now remember, in this course, our years have 360 days. Daily means we've got to break it down by 360. If they had asked for monthly, we'd have to break it down by 12 because there are 12 months in a year. If they had asked for weekly, which is very unlikely, but we'd have to break it down by 52 because there are 52 weeks in a year. But for our purposes in this class, there are going to be 360 days. So all I'm going to do is take my yearly tax bill of $1,932 and I'm going to divide it by 360. So yearly divided by 360 will give me daily. So 1932 divided by 360, I've got per day taxes of $5.3666. So if you want to say 37 cents, that's okay too, or just write down 4 past the decimal, 5.3666 per day. Those are the daily taxes on the property. Now, we don't pay them daily. You don't show up at the county every single day. That's nuts. You pay them annually. They want one check for $1,932. So why do we even bother caring about daily taxes? Well, at some point, we may have to prorate these taxes. At some point, we may have to decide how much of the taxes is owed by one person and how much of the taxes is owed by a different person. That usually happens when we sell the property sometime during the middle of the year. When we sell during the middle of the year, it would be unfair for the seller to pay all of the property taxes, just like it would be unfair for the buyer to pay all of the property taxes for that year. So when we do that, we're simply looking to be fair. And so we do that by breaking it down to a daily amount. Okay, let's take a look at number 8 here. And again, same process, same, strategic approach to answering these questions is always going to be true. Read the math question very lightly, not for detail first. Find the question. Jonathan purchased a house in Cary, which is subject to both the town of Cary's tax rate as well as Wake County's tax rate. Again, that's just telling me something. I don't need that yet. I may not need it at all. That's why I've got to find the question. The property was recently assessed a market value of $653,000 during the octennial reappraisal. Again, you're telling me something. You're giving me information. I don't need that yet. I need the question. Based on this information, there it is, what would be the monthly property taxes due on the home? So just like we talked about earlier, I don't have a formula that will get me to monthly taxes. I don't have a formula that will get me to daily taxes or weekly taxes, but I do have a formula that will get me to annual taxes. And it's the same formula we've seen over and over and over on this worksheet. The annual tax bill, or yearly, means the same thing. And I'll write annual in here just to make sure we're clear. The annual tax bill is equal to the assessed tax value times the tax rate. Okay, so I'm going to look at this formula, and I know the thing I'm looking for, which is the tax bill. There's my question mark on the top. And let's look at the information now that they give me. Now I'm reading for detail because I'm looking for things that go into the formula. Jonathan purchases a home in Cary, which is subject to both the town of Cary's 43-cent per 100 city tax rate, as well as Wake County's 70 cents per 100 tax rate. So I'm looking at the property that's going to have to pay both these rates. So I'm going to add those together. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, okay, well, we've got 43 cents in the city plus 70 cents for the county. And then I'm going to make sure and check my math. I try not to do anything in my head, even though I think I know what that is. 0.43 plus 0.7. That's 1.13, $1.13, which is the same thing as 1.13%, right? So I can fill in that 1.13% here. And then I'm looking for an assessed value. If that's the only other thing I'm missing here. It says the property was recently assessed a market value of $653,000 during the octennial reappraisal. Well, the octennial reappraisal is just the every 8-year cycle where they give the property a new assessed value. So my assessed value is just right there at $653,000. So I'm going to bring that down here, $653,000. These two things are side by side in a T-bar, so they get multiplied. So 653,000 times 1.13%. And that gives me an annual tax bill. Annual taxes equals $7,378.90. And remember, that's going to be billed in September, and it's going to be due no later than January 5th of the following year. Okay. But they didn't ask me for the annual tax bill. They asked me for the monthly tax bill. Well, this is for the year. How many months are there in the year? There are 12 months in the year. So I need to divide this, 7,378.90 divided by 12 gives me monthly taxes of $614.9083. Okay. So, and if you wanted to say again, $614.91, that's fine if you want to do the rounding, but it's not necessary. But a little more than $614, almost $615 per month in property taxes. Look at number 9. It says if a home is being sold on April 28th and the closing attorney is performing the closing utilizing a 360-day year, how many days? There's a question word. How many? How many days of property taxes will the seller be responsible for? Oh, look, there's 2 question words here. How many days will the buyer be responsible for? So they want to basically break the year down. They want us to separate how much the seller is going to owe in taxes and how much the buyer is going to owe in taxes. So I want you to think about a timeline here. If we start the year at January 1 and we end the year at December 30th, think of it this way. On January 1, who owns the property? The seller. On December 30th, who owns the property? The buyer. Well, somewhere along the way, that changes. And we know when it changes. They told us when it changes. It changes here at April 28th. That's the closing day. So this purple highlight, that's the seller's portion of the year. This green highlight, that's the buyer's portion of the year. That's all they're asking us, folks. They're simply asking us to break down the year. That's all they want to know. That's all they want to know. And so here's the seller's portion of the year. The seller portion looks like this. You got 30 days in January. You got 30 days in February. You got 30 days in March. And you've got 28 days in April because the seller's going to pay all the way up to the day of closing. So we have to restart for the buyer over here in April because we didn't finish April, right? Think of it that way. We never finished April, so we've kind of got to draw a line and think, okay, the first month the buyer's got to pay for is April because we have to finish April up. Well, if April has 30 days, that means the buyer must owe the other 2 days in April. And then May is going to be 30 for the buyer. June is going to be 30 for the buyer. July is going to be 30 for the buyer. August, September, October, November, December. And again, I know I'm kind of making that much longer than you probably are going to deal with it yourself when you really get accustomed to counting these days. But I'm just doing it because longhand is the best way to show you something. And it's the best way for you to do it until you get really comfortable. Don't get lazy. So often we miss math questions because we get lazy. I don't want to show my work. You've been having that argument with your teacher since you were in the 4th grade. Well, guess what? There was a reason they wanted you to show your work. And it wasn't for their benefit. It was for your benefit. So until you get really comfortable, show your work. When you're getting all the math questions right, you don't need to show your work anymore. When you're still struggling with math questions, you need to show your work because that way you can go back and see where your mistakes are. Don't show me just a number on a page and say, I don't get it. Clearly you don't because you didn't write anything down. You didn't show any work. So look at the seller's portion of the year. I've got 30 days in January, so that's 30, 60, 90, plus 28. So 90 plus 28, that's 118 days for my seller. And then I come over here to the buyer side and I've got 2 plus, here's 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240. So plus 240, that's 242 days for the buyer. And here, if we want to really check our math, add 118 for the seller plus 242 for the buyer. And if you do that, you should come up with 360 days. That's how the year is going to be broken down. So at the end of the day, the seller is going to owe for 118 days and the buyer is going to owe for 242 days. That's how we're going to prorate the year between the seller and the buyer. All right. Number 10 says a property has annual ad valorem. Don't get confused by that phrase. Annual property taxes. Ad valorem is just thrown in there. Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the taxes, but property taxes are property taxes. So a property has annual property taxes in the amount of $6,540 and is being sold on June 10th, 2019. Again, I'm not trying to absorb all that information. You're just telling me stuff. And I don't even know if it's stuff I need. I need to find the question. Based on this information and utilizing a 360-day year, how much of the annual property tax bill will each party, buyer and seller, be responsible for? So here's my question. How much of the annual property tax bill will each party pay? So they want two bills here. They want us to take the one bill, which they told us was $6,540, and they want us to break it down into two chunks. Here's the seller's chunk. Here's the buyer's chunk. They want two pieces. They want this broken down, into two clear pieces. So let's draw our timeline just so we can visually see this thing. The tax year always starts on January 1, and it always ends on December 30th. And it's the 30th because every month has 30 days for us. Don't forget that, okay? And we know the seller owns it over here at the beginning of the year, and we know the buyer owns it over here at the end of the year. We know that's going to change at some point along the way, and they told us when that is going to change. They told us this property was going to close on June 10th of 2019. So here's my closing date right here, June 10th of 2019. So here's the thing. I got a seller portion. I've got a buyer portion. We need to first figure out how many days each party owes. So looking at it, here's my seller. They owe for 30 days in January. They owe for 30 days in February. They owe for 30 days in March. They owe for 30 days in April. They owe for 30 days in May. And then they owe for 10 days in June. That's my seller's portion. Now let's talk about my buyer's portion. Remember, I've always got to start with the same month I left off in, because somebody's got to pay the rest of June. Well, if there's 30 days in June, then the buyer must have to pay, okay, here's June for the buyer. They're going to get the other 20 days in June. And then they're going to get 30 in July. And then they're going to get 30 in August. And then they're going to get 30 in September. And they're going to get 30 in October. And 30 in November. And then finally 30 in December. So let's total up the number of days first. Let's get a total number of days for both the seller and the buyer. If I'm adding these up here and I add my seller up, I got 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 160 days for my seller. Okay. If I'm adding them up for my buyer, well, I've got the 20 here in June, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of 30 days. That's 180 days, plus the 20 in June. That's 200 days for my buyer. Now, some of you have probably already noticed this, and it's awesome if you have. As soon as I had the seller's number right here, couldn't I have just done math that looked like this? I could say 360 minus 160 equals 200. Because obviously, whatever number of days the seller pays for, the buyer has to pay for the rest. They have to split the year between them. So you can do it that way as well. And that's the way you're going to probably start to do it as you get more and more comfortable. But here's the big thing now. We got to be comfortable with 160 days for the seller and 200 days for the buyer. Now, how do we apply that? Well, we know we have an annual property tax bill of $6,540 for the year. That's the yearly taxes. We know there are 360 days in that year. So I can take that $6,540 and I can divide that by 360. And if I do that, I get a total of 18.1666 per day. So the taxes are a little more than $18 a day. If you got $18.16, if you got $18.17, that's all acceptable. I mean, I just always go 4 past the decimal and don't worry about the rounding. So now we're ready. I'm going to zoom this down so we can keep it all on the screen for you at the same time, hopefully. Now we're ready to actually compute the seller's side. If it's $18.1666 per day times 160 days for the seller, you've got a grand total of $2,906 and 0.6666 or 0.67, somewhere around there for your seller. Okay, there's your seller number. And then if we look at the buyer, you've got that same 18.1666 per day times 18.1666 per day times 200 days for them. That's going to give you $3,633 and about 33 cents for the buyer. Now, here's a really good way to check yourself. If we add those two numbers together, shouldn't they total up to our total tax bill? And let's check that real quickly. $36.33 and 33 cents plus $29.06 and 66 or 67 cents. And that adds up to be $6,540 or within a couple pennies of it, so that we have done that correctly. That is a perfect tax proration. Now, a little bit of a shortcut here. You could always simply, once you have the seller's number, you could subtract that from the total to get the buyer's number. So I'll show you what that looks like just kind of here on the top of the next page. And if I didn't want to do this work over here, that work right there, if I didn't want to do that, what I could say is, okay, well, the total bill is $6,540 total minus the 2906.6666 for the seller. That would give me 6540 minus 2906.6666. That gives me 36.33.33334, which is the same thing we came up with doing it the other way. So that's fine as well. You can always, once you have one side, subtract it from the total to get the other side. Just, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way as well. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable that you can go either way with that. All right, I'm going to erase that from the top of this page here just so we don't have that be some confusion. All right, number 11 says a home in Raleigh is subject to the City of Raleigh's ad valorem tax rate of 38 cents per 100, as well as the Wake County tax rate of 59 cents per 100. You're giving me information. I haven't seen a question yet. Don't know what to do with this information. The home is being sold for $427,500 and has an assessed value of $415,000. Again, you're just giving me information. Don't know what to do with it. Don't care yet. If closing is taking place on February 20th of 2019, again, giving me information. What will, there's a word, what, what will be the correct prorated amount of property tax responsibility for each party? So what will be the correct prorated amount of property tax responsibility for each party? They want to know how much in taxes for the seller, how much in taxes for the buyer. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to draw out our timeline. And you'll get to the point you won't have to do the timeline, but that point might not be right now. You've got to develop a comfort level first. Don't expect, I've been doing this for years. Don't expect to be comfortable with it out of the gate. You can't. That's why you draw it out for yourself. So this is January 1, because that's the beginning of the tax year. December 30th is the end of the tax year. We know the seller owns the property over here at the beginning of the year. We know the buyer owns the property over here at the end of the year. We know that closing is taking place way back here at February 20th. So we know that here's the seller's portion, and we know here is the buyer's portion, right? We know that. So let's break that down into a number of days. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. My seller is going to owe for 30 days in January, and then for 20 days in February. So that's 50 days for the seller. So we're going to write 50 days right here for the seller. Now I'm going to do the shortcut. I'm going to cheat. If the seller's got 50 days, well, then the buyer must get the rest of the days. So 360 minus 50, that equals 310 days for the buyer. Okay? So 310 for the buyer, 50 for the seller. So far, so good. The problem is I don't have a tax bill. I don't know what to break down. I don't have a bill yet, but I do have the information to get to a bill. We got to put it all together. I know to come up with a tax bill, I'm going to be looking at this formula. Tax bill on top, annual tax bill. And on the bottom is the assessed value and the rate. So let's look at what we got here. It says the home in Raleigh is subject to the city of Raleigh's ad valorem tax rate of 38 cents per 100, as well as the Wake County tax rate of 59 cents per 100. So I'm going to add those two rates together. I'm looking right here. I got 38 cents per 100, as well as the Wake County tax rate of 59 cents. So I'm going to add those two things together. I'm going to say that my tax rate is 38 cents plus 59 cents. I'm going to add those together on my calculator. That's 97 cents. So my tax rate is 0.97%. Got that part done. Now, if I'm looking for the tax bill, here's my question mark, right? This is the thing I need to know. The tax bill up here. The other piece I'm missing is my assessed value. So it says the property sold for $427,500. Okay, well, that's the sales price. It's not an assessed value. And has an assessed value of $415,000. Which one am I going to use? I'm going to use the one the formula says to use. The formula says to use the assessed value, and that's $415,000. And so that's the number I'm going to use, $415,000. They're side by side in the T-bar. So if I do 415,000 times 0.97%, I come up with an annual tax bill on that property of $4,025.50 for the yearly tax bill. Now I need to break that down into daily. And here's how I know I need to break it down into daily. Look at what I've got for the seller and buyer. I've got numbers of days. So I need to break it down into daily. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to say $4,025.50 divided by the number of days in a year, which is 360. And that's going to give me 11.1819 per day. So a little bit more than $11. Clean that up a little bit. A little bit more than $11 per day or daily. Per day. All right, let's look at it. Work it out. We know the seller is going to pay for 50 days. So here's our seller number right here. 11.1819 times 50 days. I've got 559.095 for my seller. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take the shortcut. If the seller pays $559, isn't it fair to say the buyer's going to pay the rest? Here's my total tax bill for the year, $4,025.50 minus the seller's portion of $559.095. $4,025.50. I've got a buyer portion of $3,000. Oops, sorry, I can't read that. I've got a buyer portion of $3,466.405 for my buyer. And of course, we can always check our math and add those two together and make sure they add up to the total tax bill. But there's your prorated tax bill for a question like that. That is a great example, fantastic example of what you could expect to see as a test question. Being able to break down those property taxes into the seller's share and the buyer's share, hugely important as far as answering property tax math question on the test. I would anticipate you'd see one of those. I think you're probably going to see a plain property tax math question, just where, here's the property, what's the bill? But then I think you're going to see a little bit more applied one like this, where they want you to break that bill down based on the day of closing. So it's just really taking that bill, breaking it down into daily pieces, and then figure out, okay, the seller owes this many days and the buyer owes this many days. And together, they've now paid the whole bill. Number 12, ask you to calculate excise taxes. And I actually realized this now comes in chapter 5. It's been moved around a little bit in the book. But since it's on the worksheet here, we'll go ahead and tackle it. Now, when you talk about excise taxes, we always have to go back and find the right formula. We have to find the formula. Find the formula. So I'm going to scroll through my formulas. There it is. Excise taxes. And here's what the T-bar says for excise taxes. It says we got the purchase price on the top, and then we've got the number 500 on the bottom, and that'll give us our excise taxes. Well, that's easy enough. Purchase price divided by 500 will give me my excise taxes. So let's look at that. A sales price of $150,000. Let me write my formula down here. I got the purchase price or sales price, same thing. I've got the number 500 down here, and then that's going to give me my excise tax. And of course, the excise tax is what I'm looking for here. So there's my question mark. So here we go. Purchase price or sales price of $150,000 divided by 500. That is easy enough math. 150,000 divided by 500. That is excise taxes of $300 on that sale. On this one here, we've got a purchase price of $278,500. We're going to divide that by 500 because we always divide by 500 with excise taxes. $278,500 divided by 500 is $557 in excise taxes. Now, one thing to pay attention to with excise taxes is it's the purchase price that matters. If they give you a bunch of fluff, oh, they give you a loan amount, the seller took back a note, the buyer did this and borrowed that and got a loan for that. We don't care about any of that when it comes to excise taxes. We care about purchase price. That's it. Okay. Look at C right here. C says the sales price of $215,400. So we're going to use the same formula. Sales price goes on top, $215,400. And down here we've got 500 always. So $215,400 divided by 500, that's $430.80. This is a problem number for us though. This is not going to be our final answer here. The state, when it comes to excise taxes, doesn't take change. They don't take money that jingles. They don't go crazy and round this thing up by $500 or some nonsense like that. Just make it so there's no change. Well, if you make it so there's no change, you're either going down to 430 or up to 431. Those are the only two options. You're either going down to $430 or up to $431. And when it comes to excise taxes, you always go up. So the actual answer here for our excise taxes is $431. Look at D. We have a sales price of $101,050. We're always dividing by 500. 101,050 divided by 500. That's going to be $202.10. But again, there's that change, jingle money. State doesn't like it. As old people would say, my grandfather would say, they want folding money. They want cash, bills. So we either got to go down to $202 or up to $203. And with excise taxes, you always go up. So that's going to be $203 for our excise taxes on that property. Very straightforward math with excise taxes. Very, very straightforward. All right, so now we got some that are going to kind of pull all these ideas together, and hopefully now you're ready to tackle these. Let's look at them one at a time here. What does the annual tax do? Well, there's our question right away. What does the annual tax do? So let's go ahead and write our formula down here. We know that that's going to be tax bill equals the assessed value times the rate. Okay. And we're looking for the tax bill. There's our question mark. We don't know that one. Okay. What's the annual tax due on a home that has an assessed tax value of $265? Well, there's one of the numbers we need, $265. In an area with a total tax rate of $1.03 per 100. So the total tax rate is 1.03%. Well, I can do that. 265,000 times 1.03%. That looks like to me we're going to have an annual tax bill of $2,729.50 per year on that property. Number two, if the assessed tax value of a property is $347,000, that's information, and the county tax rate is $1.25 per 100, that's information. I'm not trying to deal with it. I'm just looking for a question. What is the annual real property tax? There it is, finally. Finally, you got me to a question. What is the annual real property tax? So again, we know the formula for that is tax bill is equal to the assessed value times the rate. Well, they're asking me for the tax bill. What's the annual property taxes? That's the bill, same thing. Let's see what they tell me. The assessed tax value of the property is $347,000. Okay, great. There it is. Filled in. The county tax rate is $1.25 per 100. Okay. That's easy enough. 1.25%. They're side by side. I'm going to multiply them. $347,000 times 1.25%. Oops. 47 times 1.25%. That is an annual tax bill of $4,337.50. And that's per year, which is what they wanted, right? Annual, per year, yearly, all mean the same thing. Look at number 3. What is the total ad valorem property tax due on a home? There's my question right out of the gate. What is the total property tax due on a home? So I can go ahead and write down my formula. My tax bill is going to be up here on the top, and that's what they want to know. They're asking me, what is the tax bill? And it has an assessed tax value of $138,000. Well, I can go ahead and fill that in here, $138,000, because that's my assessed value. And I know I'm looking for my rate over here, right? It's located in Cary, where the county assesses a tax rate of 75 cents per 100, and the city charges an additional 25 cents per 100. So remember the rule. If you're in a city, Cary's a city. If you're in a city, you pay both the city and county. You always pay the county. Every property pays county taxes. That's never in debate. The only question is, does it also pay city taxes? And if you're in a city, you're going to pay county plus city. So what we need to do on these taxes here is we need to add them together. I've got 75 cents plus 25 cents. I don't even need a calculator for that. That's $1, folks, which is the same thing as 1.00%. I've got it all filled in here now. 138,000 times 1%. That's an annual property tax bill of $1,380 per year. And that's what they wanted to know. There we go. All right, number 4. If the city tax rate is 25 cents per 100 of value and the county tax rate is 80 cents per 100, what is, here comes the question, what is the assessed tax value of a property? So they want to know the assessed value this time. What's the same formula? You got a tax bill up here and the assessed value and the rate down here, but this time they want to know, the question mark goes here with the assessed value. They want to know what the assessed value of that property is. That's what we're looking for this time. So let's see what information we got. If the city tax rate is 25 cents per 100 of value and the county tax rate is 80 cents per 100 of value, well, it didn't tell me whether it's in the city or county, so I have to assume in this case they want us to use both. So I'm going to add those together. I'm going to look at, we've got 25 cents per 100 plus 80 cents per 100. That's $1.05, which is 1.05%. Okay. And it has a $3,867 annual tax bill. So there's my tax bill, $3,867. I've got 2 numbers filled in the T-bar. If I've got 2, I can always get the third one. This time, though, look at them. They are top and bottom, which means I'm going to divide the number on the top by the number on the bottom. So I'm going to say 3867 divided by 1.05%. And that's going to give me an assessed value on that property of $368,285.7142. There's my assessed value on that property. All right. Number 5 says if a property is located in Raleigh and Raleigh has a city tax rate of 35 cents per 100 of valuation, while Wake County has a tax rate of 75 cents per $100 of valuation, what is the assessed value of the property? There's my question finally. What is the assessed value of the property? Well, Write my formula down, tax bill on top. Down on the bottom, we got the assessed value, and there's my question mark. That's what they're asking me for. So let me go ahead and remind myself of that. And then the other thing over here is the tax rate. So let's fill in the information here. It says if the property is located in Raleigh, and Raleigh has a city tax rate of 35 cents per 100, while Wake County has a tax rate of 75 cents per 100. Well, if it's in the city of Raleigh, we're going to pay both. So we've got 0.35 for the city, 0.75 for the county. That looks like $1.10 to me. So my tax rate here is going to be 1.10%. What's the assessed value of the property based on a tax bill of $6,750? Well, my tax bill goes right here, $6,750. I've got 2 of the 3 numbers filled in. I'm ready to rock and roll. They are top and bottom. That means my math is going to be division. So 6750 divided by 1.10%. That looks like $613,000 to me for an assessed value. 636.3636 for an assessed value on that property. All right. Number 6 says a warehouse owner just paid his annual property tax bill of $12,850 to Orange County, which charges an 82 cents per 100 tax rate on real property. Based on this information, what is the current, there's the question, what is the current assessed tax value? Well, let me write my formula out again. I got the tax bill up here. I got the assessed value, and that's what they're asking me for. So there's my question mark. And then I got the rate. Okay, so they want to know the assessed value. Remind me what I'm looking for here. He just paid his annual property tax bill of $12,850. Okay, well, let's fill that in. $12,850 is my tax bill. They told me the tax rate was 82 cents per 100. Nothing I need to do there other than just fill that in, 0.82%. What's the current assessed tax value? Well, 2 things in the T-bar. They're top and bottom, so we're going to divide them. 12,850 divided by 0.82%. That's going to give me an assessed value on that property of $1,567,073.1707. Should be getting a lot more comfortable for you as you go. That's the hope. And if it's not, you go back and you start over. You watch again. But it should be getting much more comfortable for you. If the assessed value of a home located in Chapel Hill and Orange County is $542,950, and the city of Chapel Hill levels a 90 cent per 100 tax, while the Orange County tax rate is 85 cents per 100, I'm tired. But I haven't even got to the question yet. See, here's how you exhaust yourself doing these questions. You try to absorb all that stuff. You can't absorb all that. It's too much. Don't do that to yourself. Don't put yourself in a situation where you feel like you have to do it all. Look for the question. What is the total tax bill? Right there. There's my question. What's the total tax bill? Well, I know a formula for that. Tax bill goes on the top. And down here on the bottom, we have the assessed value and the tax rate. They want to know the bill, so I'm going to put my question mark there. I'll remind myself that's the one I'm looking for. So now let's see what information we have. I'm going to start over and look for information. If the assessed value of a home located in Chapel Hill in Orange County is $542,950, well, I can just fill that in, folks. $542,950. Done. And the city of Chapel Hill levels a 90 cent per 100 tax, while the Orange County tax rate is 85 cents per 100. Well, it's in Chapel Hill. It's always in the county. So I think it's going to pay both. So I would say we've got a 90 cent tax rate plus an 85 cent tax rate. That's $1.75, which is the same as 1.75% over here. Look at that. Two things in the T-bar. Ready to do some math? They're side by side. Multiply them. 542,950 times 1.75%. That's a tax bill annually of $9,501.625 yearly. And the bill on September 1, 2011, we know that. That's when the tax bills come out. It's just fluff. Also, when does this particular bill become a lien against the property? Okay, so there's the bill. If it was billed on September 1 of 2011, that means it's the 2011 property taxes. Remember, property taxes become a lien in advance, which means they became a lien on January 1, 2011. So there's your whole answer right there. 9,501.625 became a lien on January 1 of 2011. Number 8 asks us about that mill rate thing. And I'll remind you, I'll go back, find my mill rate formula again. Mill rate on top, down on the bottom is 1,000 and the tax rate. So let me write that down here. Oops. That mill rate on the top. We've got the number 1,000 down here on the bottom, and we've got the tax rate down here. They want another mill rate, so there's my question mark right there. Oh, I'm sorry. They don't want another mill rate. That's my mistake. They want to know the decimal tax rate. Gotta read the question. They want to know the decimal tax rate. They give us the mill rate of 18. And we've already got the number 1,000 in there. So 18 divided by 1,000, I come up with a decimal tax rate of 0.018. This one says, what is the equivalent decimal tax rate to a mill rate of 13.5? Well, we know the formula is going to be the same thing. We've got the mill rate up here on the top, the number 1,000 down here on the bottom, and the tax rate. Okay, so they want to know again the decimal tax rate right here. There's my question mark. That's what they're asking for. They give me a mill rate of 13.5, so I'm going to fill that in. I already have the number 1,000 in there, so I'm just going to divide 13.5 divided by 1,000. That is a decimal tax rate of 0.0135. Number 10 says Elmer is purchasing a property on August 18th of 2019. The home has annual property taxes in the amount of $4,800. If the closing is being prorated using a 360-day year, how much of the annual tax bill, there's my question finally, how much of the annual tax bill will Elmer be responsible for? Well, here's the thing. Elmer is purchasing, right? So Elmer's the buyer. So how much is the buyer going to be responsible for? They don't want the whole tax bill. They want just the buyer's portion. So I'm going to draw my little timeline here. Here's January 1, because that's the beginning of the tax year. Here's December 30th. That's the end of the tax year. We know this is the buyer's side of the year. We know this over here is the seller's side of the year. We know the property changes hands somewhere along the way right here, about August 18th. So we know we have a seller's portion, and we know we have a buyer's portion. Since Elmer is the buyer and they're asking us about the buyer, this is the period of time they're asking for. So we need to figure out how much time that is. Now, I like to always figure out the seller's time and then get the buyer's time. I find it easier to do it that way. You can do it whatever way works for you, but I find it easier to do it that way. So here's what I'm going to say. Elmer owes for 30 days in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and then in August, the seller owes for 18 days. Those are the seller numbers. So I've got, if I'm adding them all together, I've got 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, plus 18 is 228 days for my seller. My buyer side, remember, is just going to be whatever's left over. So I take 360 days total for the year minus the 228 that the seller's paying for. All right, that is 360 minus 228. That's 132 days for the buyer. And it's the buyer side that we're worried about. So that's the number I'm going to focus on from now on. I'm going to focus on 132 days. That's the amount of taxes I'm concerned with. Here's what I know about the taxes. I know for the full year, they are $4,800 yearly. I know I can divide that by 360 to get them down to daily. That is $13.3333 per day times 132 days that the buyer is going to pay for Elmer. That is going to be $1,760. $1,760 that Elmer is going to owe in taxes as the buyer. And of course, the seller would owe the other side, but they didn't ask us about the seller's side. So they just wanted to know the buyer's side here. Didn't ask us for both, just one. That's the buyer's portion. Last one. Leslie owns the home at 123 Main Street in Garner and is selling it to Michelle with the closing set to take place on October 28th of 2019. The closing attorney is prorating the closing expenses using a 360-day year. The home has an assessed tax valuation of $318,650 and is subject to total ad valorem tax rate of $1.07 per 100 of value. I have read a bunch of stuff and I have not seen a question yet. Show me a question. Don't freak out. Don't get I don't remember a single number I've read. Don't care. Because I don't know what you're asking me for yet. I've got to figure out what the question is. Based on this information, how much of the, there we go, finally. How much of the annual property tax bill will Leslie be responsible for? Well, it says Leslie owns. Leslie is selling. So Leslie's the seller. And so here's what they want to know. How much of the year is the seller paying for? That means I got to break the year down. That means I got to draw my timeline here. And I know my timeline starts January 1. And I know it ends at December 30th. I know the January portion, the beginning of the year, belongs to the seller. I know the end of the year belongs to the buyer. And I know the changeover happens over here October 28th. They want to know, how much does Leslie, the seller, owe? So they want to know that part of the year right there. That's what they're looking for. So let's talk about it. She owes January 30 days, February 30 days, March 30 days, April 30 days, May 30 days, June 30, July 30, August 30, September 30, and then finally October 28. So if we add those all together, I've got, and I start counting here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months at 30 days. That's 270 plus 28. So 270 plus 28 is going to be 298 days for Leslie, the seller. That is an important number for us. That's how many days she has to pay for. Now we need to figure out how much each day costs so that we can figure out how much to charge her. And we'll try to keep this all together for you. So let's look at the information we have. Did they give us a tax bill? I'm scanning through and I'm scanning through and I'm scanning through. No, I don't see a tax bill. So that's the first thing I got to come up with. I can't figure out how much Leslie owes in taxes without having a tax bill. Well, that means I got to go back to my same old formula that I've used so many times. The tax bill equals the assessed value times the rate. And I want to know the tax bill. So there's my question mark. What do I want to know? It's right there. So let's see what information they gave me. Closing on October 28th. Closing attorney is prorating the closing expenses using a 360-day year. The home has an assessed tax value of $318,650. There's an assessed value that goes in my formula. $318,650. And is subject to a total ad valorem tax rate of $1.07. So there's my tax rate is 1.07%. They're side by side in the T-bar. I know what that means. That means multiply. So I'm going to do 318,650 times 1.07%. And that is going to give me an annual tax bill of $3,409.555. Now, here's the thing. That's for the whole year. You can't say Leslie's going to pay that because she would be mad. She would be so mad. She would be like, wait a minute, why am I paying for the whole year? I didn't own the whole year. I only owned it until October 28th. And that's where the proration part comes in. So what we need to do is figure out, based on that yearly expense, we need to figure out how much it's going to cost for 298 days of that, which is the amount of time that Leslie owned the property. Not for the whole year, just for 298 days. So that's the portion that we need to come up with right now, is the 298 days for Leslie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that annual property tax bill of $3,409.555, and we're going to divide it by 360 days because that's the number of days in the year. So we can break it down to a daily rate. And that is $9.4709 per day. That's our daily rate. And we know that she owes for 298 days. There we go. So times 298 days. Leslie is going to pay $2,822.3538. That is her portion of the tax bill as the seller. And of course, Michelle, the buyer, is going to pay the rest of the year. But they didn't ask us for Michelle's portion. They only asked us for how much Leslie would be responsible for, and that is $2,822. And folks, that is it for your property tax worksheet. I hope you found the video to be helpful. I hope you feel comfortable with this math. And if you don't, I would simply suggest don't sweat it. Stop the video, go back to the beginning and start over and do it again until you're comfortable with it. And you will eventually be comfortable with it. And that's the beauty of the math. It's all about repetition. So go back and look at it until you're comfortable. Make sure you really know those formulas. Make sure you've got them committed to memory, and you're going to be just fine on this section of the test.